My name is Elizabeth. I am 90 years old, and for 20 years of my life, 20 long years, my son Thomas did not speak to me. Not a single phone call, not a single letter, not even at Christmas. People used to ask me, "How do you live with that?" And I always said the same thing. You learn to breathe around the pain. But that's not the whole truth. The whole truth is, I never stopped waiting for him. Every single morning for 20 years, I woke up and thought, maybe today he'll call. And then, one Tuesday afternoon in November, someone knocked on my door. To understand what happened between Thomas and me, you have to go back to the very beginning. Thomas was born in 1952. He was my first child, and I loved him the way only a mother loves her firstborn, completely, recklessly, without condition. He had his father's eyes, dark brown, serious, always watching everything, thinking everything. My husband Richard was a quiet man, a good man. He worked at the mill 6 days a week, came home tired, ate supper, and fell asleep in his chair. We didn't have much, but we had enough. We had each other. Thomas grew up fast. Too fast, maybe. By the time he was 14, he already had opinions about everything. About politics, about religion, about how I kept the house, about how his father didn't fight hard enough for a promotion. He was brilliant, my Thomas. And sometimes brilliant people are very difficult to love. He went to university in 1970, the first in our family to go. I was so proud I cried for 3 days straight. I still have the photograph from the day we dropped him off. He's standing in front of the dormitory with his suitcase. He looks so young. He looks like he can't wait to leave. The trouble started when Thomas was 26. He had graduated. He had a good job. And he came home one Sunday with a woman named Claire. Claire was not what I expected. She was older than Thomas by 7 years. She had been married before. She had a daughter from that marriage, a little girl named Sophie. I want to be honest with you now, because if I am not honest, this story means nothing. I did not welcome Claire the way I should have. I was afraid that she was wrong for my son. Afraid that he was moving too fast. Afraid, maybe, of losing him to a life I didn't recognize. And instead of keeping those fears to myself, I spoke them out loud. At dinner that Sunday evening, I said things I should never have said. I questioned her intentions. I questioned whether Thomas had thought this through. I looked at that little girl, Sophie, that innocent child who had done nothing wrong, and I made her feel unwelcome in my home. Thomas stood up from the table. He didn't shout. He didn't slam the door. He simply looked at me and said, "Mum, if you cannot love the people I love, then I cannot be here." And he left. I thought he would come back in a week. He didn't come back for 20 years. The first year was the hardest. I wrote him letters. He didn't reply. I called his flat. He didn't answer. His father Richard tried to speak to him once. Thomas told him gently, but clearly, that he needed space and that he would reach out when he was ready. Richard came home that evening and held my hand and said, "We have to wait, Elizabeth. We just have to wait." And so we waited. Richard passed away in 1989. A heart attack, sudden, in the garden. Thomas did not come to the funeral. That was the day I understood. This was not a temporary silence. This was something much deeper, something I had broken that did not know how to heal itself. The years passed the way years do when you are alone, slowly, and then all at once. I had my daughter, Margaret. I had my grandchildren. I had my garden and my church and my Tuesday morning tea group. But there was always a room in my heart that was locked, and the key was with Thomas. I used to wonder what his life looked like, whether Claire had made him happy, whether little Sophie had grown up, whether he ever thought of me, whether he was well. That was always the question underneath all the other questions. Is my son well? A mother never stops asking that, even when she has no right to ask it, even when she was the one who caused the wound. It was a Tuesday, November 2001. I remember because it was cold early that year, and I had been inside all day. I was sitting in my chair by the window, the same chair I always sit in, and I was knitting. I heard footsteps on the path outside. I didn't think anything of it. Probably the postman, probably the neighbour's boy cutting through. And then a knock, 3 knocks, slow, careful, almost uncertain. I went to the door. I opened it, and there was Thomas. He was 51 years old. His hair had gone grey at the temples. He had lines around his eyes, his father's lines, and he was wearing a coat I had never seen before. He looked like a stranger, and he looked exactly like my son. Neither of us said anything for a long moment. And then he said, "Mum," just that one word, just Mum. And I don't know what happened to me. Everything I had saved up for 20 years, every letter I hadn't sent, every Christmas I had sat alone, every morning I had woken up and hoped it all came out at once, I reached out and put my hand on his face. His cheek was cold from the November air, and I said, "Come inside, I'll make tea." We sat in this kitchen for 4 hours. He told me everything. He and Claire had married in 1978. They had 2 children together, boys. Sophie had grown up and become a school teacher. He told me that for many years he had been too angry to reach out, that my words that Sunday had lodged in him like a splinter, small, but always there, always pressing. He told me that Claire, the woman I had rejected so coldly, had been the one to encourage him to come. She had said to him, "Your mother is getting old, Thomas. Go and see her, for your own sake, if not for hers." I owe that woman more than I can ever repay. I told Thomas that I was sorry. Not a short sorry, the kind you say to fill silence. A long sorry, the kind that costs you something. I told him I had been afraid, and that fear had made me cruel. I told him that Sophie had deserved better. I told him that Claire had deserved better. I told him that he had deserved better. He listened to all of it. And then he said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. He said, "I know, Mum. I know. I just needed you to say it. Thomas died in 2019. Cancer. He was 67 years old. I was 88. I held his hand at the end. I was there. After everything we had lost, we had 18 years back. 18 years of Sunday dinners and birthday calls and photographs and his boys calling me Grandma Elizabeth. 18 years. Some people say, what a tragedy. You lost 20 years. And yes, we did. I will not pretend otherwise. 20 years is a long time. 20 years of Christmases and funerals and ordinary Tuesdays that we did not share. But here is what I have learned. At 90 years old, you cannot go back. You can only go forward. And sometimes, if you are patient, and if you are honest, and if you are brave enough to open the door, someone you thought was lost forever will knock. I still think about that Tuesday in November. The cold on his cheek, the grey at his temples, the way he said, "Mum, just that. Mum, if there is someone in your life that you have lost, someone you have hurt, or someone who has hurt you, I want you to know something. It is not too late. It is never too late until it is. Don't wait 20 years.